On a rainy October night, a teenager walked into a church choir rehearsal in Philadelphia, and never came out. His backpack was left on the pew, his music was still open on the stand, and his jacket hung neatly by the door. But he was gone. What looked like a simple runaway case turned into one of the most chilling disappearances the city has ever seen. Hidden tunnels, secret rituals, and a shocking discovery years later that proved evil can hide in the most trusted places. It was a Friday evening at Riverside Church, an old red brick building that had stood on the same corner for more than 100 years. Inside, the choir was rehearsing for Sunday's service. The air smelled of candle wax and damp wood. Dozens of teenagers filled the pews, their voices rising in harmony, while parents waited outside under umbrellas. 16-year-old Jordan Miles was one of them. He wasn't the type to stand out, shy smile, a little reserved, but his voice carried weight in the lower notes. That night, Jordan was excited. He had been chosen for a solo the following week. By 9:15 p.m., rehearsal wrapped up. Kids shuffled toward the lobby, laughter bouncing off the stone walls. Some grabbed their coats, others texted parents for a ride. But when the choir director called for a final head count, one spot was empty. Jordan's. At first, no one panicked. Maybe he had gone to the bathroom. Maybe he'd stepped outside to wait for his father. But minutes turned to half an hour, and Jordan was nowhere. His jacket was still on the hook by the door. His backpack lay on a pew, unzipped. His sheet music was open on the stand where he had last been singing. The church doors were locked from the inside. The windows were shut tight. In a crowded building full of people, Jordan had simply vanished. Police were called just after 10 p.m. Officers combed through the church, every hallway, every closet. They searched the basement, the attic, even the bell tower. Nothing. At first, detectives leaned toward the obvious answer: runaway. Teenagers leave, they said. But Jordan's family pushed back. He wasn't the type to vanish. He had no money, no phone, no jacket for the storm outside. He had been looking forward to his solo. By Sunday, dozens of volunteers gathered with flashlights, combing the neighborhood. They checked alleys, abandoned row houses, storm drains. Flyers went up on telephone poles, Jordan's face smiling back in school photos. Still nothing. The city moved on, but Jordan's parents didn't. They sat in the front pew of Riverside every week, staring at the spot where their son's backpack had been left. 2 weeks after Jordan's disappearance, the janitor of Riverside Church made a discovery. He was cleaning out the basement, a maze of storage rooms that hadn't been touched in years, when he noticed a wooden cabinet shoved awkwardly against the wall. Behind it, in the shadows, he found a single shoe, Jordan's, size 10, the same brand his mother had bought him for the start of school. The laces were cut clean through. Next to it sat a candle burned down to nothing, its wax pooled in strange shapes. On the stone floor, drawn in chalk, were 3 interlocking circles. The janitor backed away in fear. He knew those symbols had not been there before. When detectives arrived, they photographed everything. But the shoe was the only solid link. The chalk symbols couldn't be identified. And just as quickly as the discovery raised new hope, the case went cold again. A year passed. Then, another. The Miles family held candlelight vigils outside the church, refusing to let their son's name fade. But whispers began to spread through the community. Older members of the congregation remembered another disappearance, nearly 20 years earlier, from a different church across the city. A teenage boy had gone missing after choir practice there too. His body was never found. When police compared the old case files, one detail stood out. In that church's choir stall, carved into the wood, investigators had found a name. The boy's own name, etched deep with a knife. Detectives decided to check Riverside again, just in case. They lifted up Jordan's old pew, scraping away layers of varnish. And there, underneath, was a single word carved into the wood. Remember. Civil War era, once used by the Underground Railroad. Most of the tunnels had collapsed, but one narrow passage still connected to the church basement. The same basement where Jordan's shoe had been found. Detectives realized then, whoever had taken Jordan knew the building well. They could have slipped in and out without ever being seen, using a route no one alive had remembered existed. 10 years after Jordan vanished, demolition workers clearing debris from a collapsed section of tunnel made another discovery. Tucked into a rotting wooden box was a bundle of items: sheet music stained with water, a broken metronome, and a choir robe with Jordan's initials sewn into the collar. DNA confirmed what the family already feared. The robe belonged to their son. But there was more. Inside the box was a black leather-bound book filled with handwritten notes. Names. Dates. Strange prayers scribbled between Bible verses. Some of the names were children from the neighborhood, one of them the boy who had disappeared 2 decades earlier. The police never released the full contents of that book. But one thing was clear: Jordan's case was no accident. His disappearance was part of something hidden, something that had been festering beneath Riverside Church for years. To this day, Jordan Miles has never been found. His parents still light a candle for him every October, in the same church where his voice once echoed. What really happened that night remains a mystery. Did someone in the congregation know more than they admitted? Who kept that book of names? And why? And most chilling of all, how many other voices were silenced before anyone thought to look beneath the floorboards? Some say evil comes from dark alleys, lonely highways, or strangers in the night. But sometimes, it hides in the very places meant to give us comfort. Sometimes, it sings from the choir. Some mysteries never fully close, and the disappearance at Riverside Church still leaves more questions than answers. If you want more true crime stories told with this level of depth and detail, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and stay with us, because the next case may be even darker.